As a mum, I completely understand the constant niggling worry about your baby's developmental milestones. This week, I am joined by Ciara McClarey. Ciara is passionate about spreading awareness of baby and child development and how parents can help to support their little ones.
Feeding and sleep are just so vital and crucial to get your head around in those sort of early days and weeks and months.
So for mums listening, Ciara, who maybe are concerned about delayed milestones, when should they seek advice from a professional?
The general healthcare advice is to see your GP or local peds physio if they're sort of not meeting milestones at set sort of age range, and that's just there just to be a guide.
Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. As a mum, I completely understand the constant niggling worry about your baby's developmental milestones. And I drove myself mad with my first son, who didn't seem to do the physical things as fast as his peers. So this week's episode is here so that you don't fall into the same trap that I did. This week, I am joined by Ciara McClarey, a clinical specialist paediatric physiotherapist. She specialises in the physical development of babies and children and diagnosis and management of conditions that can affect the muscles and joints during childhood. Ciara is passionate about spreading awareness of baby and child development and how parents can help to support their little ones' gross motor development and when to seek support, providing evidence-based information. You can also find her on her online Instagram account at The Child Physio. So welcome, Ciara, and thank you so much for letting us steal you away from your very busy life. We were just speaking about the relentless winter bugs, and you've got twins that were hit with them, so double the intensity and hard work. So thank you so much for making time to speak to us today.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really, really looking forward to sort of getting some of this information out there and having a good chat about baby and child development.
It's one of those funny ones, isn't it? Like, I think in pregnancy, you have this constant port of call and all of this information support, and then the baby's here and it just kind of dwindles until they get to like school and you have like school reports and kind of contact with teachers. There's this like really weird period of time where, with the best will of the world, we're a bit like, what do we do with them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Isn't there?
think, like, obviously and rightly so, like feeding and sleep are just so vital and crucial to get your head around in those sort of early days and weeks and months. I think sometimes it's knowing where to seek advice on development, but also when, and for us as professionals, knowing when would be the right time to be offering the advice as well. Obviously, we don't want to bombard mums with too much information prenatally because they've got a big life-changing event ahead of them, and then postnatally, sort of knowing when the right time is. So yeah, it's really lovely to. I've started doing a few talks and podcasts and things just to try and get a bit of information out to parents. So when they feel ready, they can sort of tap in and pick up some information on this topic.
Yeah, I love what you said there. I think you're completely right in that the time to discuss this is really individual on different parents. Like, if you've had everything that's gone totally swimmingly, you might find that a month in, you're like, great, I'm ready to almost like graduate to that next step of what else
Yeah.
can I be doing. Whereas if feeding and sleep are all consuming, if you've had, you're attending additional appointments or you've had complex recovery, it's like survive it all. And when you
Yeah.
come up for air, is a nice time to start taking like a non-pressurized approach to kind of this kind of stuff. So it's lovely that we're going to have this all saved on the podcast to kind of signpost people to. But Ciara, what are some of the kind of key milestones in a baby or a child's physical development, and what can parents do to support them to kind of reach those?
Yeah, so I think it's really important for us to sort of talk about like the wide range of like typical ages for babies to reach these. I think that's a really nice sort of starting sort of point for parents to get a bit of information on, because I feel like there's not a great deal of information out there on this. And I know from like meeting parents in clinic and friends who are parents, they often end up Googling and going down like a little bit of a rabbit hole. And we've already touched on sort of like the sort of anxiety that can come up with it. And it really, really does vary. So all babies are different. We all have different genetic makeup that can affect how quickly we learn these skills, and different environmental factors, and even intrinsically what motivates the baby is different. So some babies are just absolutely raring to get moving, and others will need some encouragement of a toy for them to reach towards, or other children or siblings for them to sort of interact and copy. Um, and I see this all day firsthand at work and at home as well. So we were speaking before. So I have twins who are one, they're nearly two, and they've got access to the same toys, same sort of home environment, but up to this point, they've reached all their sort of motor milestones at different points. And even with walking in particular, they were at least a couple of months apart. So there was quite a bit of a variance between them for that. But it was all still sort of within typical. And it can just be too easy for us to sort of compare our own children with our sort of friends' children, within our sort of mum groups. Um, which is natural, obviously, because we all just want the best for our children. But like we were saying, I think it'd be really lovely to get this sort of information out to parents on the varied ranges, and hopefully that can be a nice starting point to offer a bit of reassurance to parents. Have you seen the Bluey episode, Baby Race?
No, because my little boy is obsessed with everything bluey except for when it's on the
Ah,
TV. So he loves his bluey
oh,
pants, but he won't watch, well, doesn't really sit and watch it. But then that's probably because, ironically, the boy can't sit still, like it's physically
oh,
impossible for him. However, what you were just saying about that normal range in comparison, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before, when he was little, he was really slow, and I'm doing that like finger thing because we know it's not actually slow, it's normal.
yeah.
But compared to his peers and everyone at our baby groups, he never rolled, he just never did. He sat up late, he crawled late, he walked late. Late, it's not late, it's normal, but late in comparison. And I left baby groups in floods of tears so many times. I was like, there must be something wrong. I must be failing him because he's not doing this and all of these other children are. And now I have got that child that cannot not be physical all of the time.
Yeah, and I see that so much in clinic, in that the Bluey episode touched on it so beautifully, that unfortunately it's so common, and it does often make the parent feel like that. And obviously it's absolutely not the case that the parent hasn't done something or has done something, because there's all these other factors that come into it, and babies are just so different. But yeah, in terms of sort of physical development, so you can think of it like a sequence of development. But as we know, it doesn't always go in this order, but it's like a general sort of starting point to sort of discuss. So first would be your head control at sort of 3 months, and you'd be developing that through tummy time. And then baby might start sort of reaching, batting for a toy around sort of 3 months when you're holding them or they're under the baby gym, and then maybe start grasping a toy when they're developing their hand-eye coordination around 4 months. Rolling's typically the first sort of big milestone that they develop. That can come between sort of 4 and 7 months. So big variance starting already. So sort of typically they'll learn to roll from their tummy to their back first, from doing lots of tummy time. So that's often between sort of 4 and 6 months. So lots of tummy time will help with that. And once baby's able to push through sort of extended arms and lift up, and they can then roll onto their side, you can then encourage them with a toy to roll the whole way over. And then rolling from their back on their tummy is usually slightly later, so normally sort of 6 to 8 months, just because they need to be a little bit older to have a bit more core and trunk strength to be able to almost like crunch up and reach across. So baby gyms, I think, are really nice at that point. You can move all the toys onto one side of the baby gym to encourage baby to sort of reach across midline. So they're almost starting to sort of crunch across and roll onto their side. Um, and also around this time, babies sort of learning to start sitting. Um, which again sort of develops their trunk strength and helps with rolling. So sitting's typically between sort of 5 to 8 months, most typical around 7. So you can sort of start propping baby up, sitting behind baby, propping them up with pillows. Encouraging baby to get in and out of sitting is really, really important. So we're not just looking for baby to sort of be placed in sitting and develop their trunk balance that way, but we want them to learn what physios love, the like transitional movement. So baby can start to get in and out of these positions themselves. And that's what really, really helps them develop that real independent sort of moving. And then that independent floor mobility tends to the variance just gets bigger and bigger as they sort of progress on with their milestones. So, I mean, this can be anything from commando crawling at sort of 5 months to learning to independently move across the floor up to sort of 13 months. So it's most common around 9, but for most babies, this is crawling, so coming up onto their hands and knees, but not for all babies. Some might commando crawl, or some might bottom shuffle. Some might work out like a 3-point crawling where they're on their hands and maybe just one knee. Our bodies are really clever, so the baby will just find out the easiest way for them to move. But again, lots of floor play, finding out what motivates baby to move. So I always say that you are your baby's favorite toy. So if you can get down on the floor with baby, then that's often a great motivation for baby to move towards you. And then sort of finding out like through play groups and interacting with sort of other children, like what toys baby likes, so whether they're like really musical toys or cuddly toys or playing siblings. So just finding intrinsically what's going to motivate them. Um, and then the next developmental milestone is sort of pulling up to stand. So that's normally typically around sort of 9 months old. And around that time, when they start showing an interest in sort of pulling up, then you'd want to move all their toys up onto sort of higher surfaces. So putting them up on the sofa or up on like a poof or up on cushions, and some still on the play mat, and like layering and getting baby to sort of move between pulling up to sort of squatting back down again to develop their leg strength. And then walking, so the big sort of milestone can be up to 18 months is still within like typical development. So once baby's sort of pulling up to stand, then they might start cruising, so holding onto the sofa and taking steps to one side or the other side, and then steps between furniture, and then you can sort of gradually start to increase the gap between the furniture, so they're starting to take some steps. You can also sort of holding baby's hands to help them walk is okay, but make sure that you try and hold their hands a bit lower. So definitely below like baby's shoulder height. So you're not sort of like pulling up on their arms. And then the more toddler preschool sort of developmental milestones of like jumpings, typically around sort of 2, and then like walking up and down stairs, like 2. You'd want them to be sort of confident and independent, doing it by the time they're 3. So they're sort of the bigger milestones, but then also on the way to reaching those big milestones, there's also lots of mini milestones that we've sort of touched on. So use them as like a guide and sort of celebrate them as well. So like if you can see that your 16, 17-month old, maybe they're not taking independent steps yet, but they're really confident, nicely cruising, they're starting to take steps between furniture, then use that as a really nice guide that they're definitely on their way to reaching those milestones.
Yeah, it's so helpful. Thank you for running through that. And I love that you gave everything in that range. And I think, my key takeaway for parents listening would be to be aware of that range and to recognize, we're all so unique. If you and I both decided today that we were going to learn to play, I don't know, the piano, we're not going to both do it and nail it in 4 months. Like
No,
it's such a range, isn't it? But because I think with little people, each month feels massive, doesn't it? Because of how much they grow and evolve, that we suddenly feel like this month is this huge thing. Whereas in the grand scheme of life, a month is literally nothing, is it? Like it's
yeah,
such an insignificant time frame in the reality. And one of the things that you talked about, especially with our littler babies, is tummy time.
yeah.
And would you mind just kind of summarize? Because feel like parents know that like tummy time is this great thing to try and do, and some babies are more willing to obey with that than others naturally. But would you mind just explaining to mums listening a little bit, Ciara, kind of the importance of tummy time and how it does aid their kind of physical development?
Yeah. So like I agree. I think tummy time can get a bit of a bad rep, and it really does get drilled into us, doesn't it, as new parents, that we need to do tummy time to start it straight away. And there's these World Health Organization guidelines that we should be doing 30 minutes a day. And sometimes it's really challenging when babies don't like it. And um I always say tummy time is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's a long process of practicing tummy time, and you can be gradual with it. So yeah, it kind of all links back to like the back to sleep campaign from like the 90s, where we know, and we know still know now, that putting a baby to sleep on their back is the safest position. But newborns have got quite soft skulls. So with that came a little bit of an increase in development of flat spots on the back of baby's head, or if baby sleeps with their head sort of turned to the side, they can get a flat spot at the back on the side of their head, which is called a plagioccephaly. So, and that kind of thing, if you picked up something like that, you'd want to check in with your GP, and we can give you positioning advice to sort of help with it and just make sure that that is what is causing the flat spot and it's not anything else. Um, so to counteract this, we're really encouraged. One of the reasons we're encouraged to do tummy time is to counteract the sort of increased risk of developing flat spots on baby's head. Um, so by baby being off their back, it helps take the pressure off the back of their head, so baby can develop a lovely sort of round head. um, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be on their tummy straight away. It can be on their side. It can be when they're in a baby carrier and they've got a little bit of space to sort of move their head around. It can be when they're really little and you're kind of holding them up above your shoulder. That all counts as time off their back. But developmentally, why we love tummy time is because it's really important position for baby to learn the sort of that sort of growth, first sort of gross milestone of head control. So it's while they're on their tummies that they learn to lift their heads up against gravity and develop a lot of their head and neck control around sort of 3 months. And then that does form then the basis and foundation for developing that lovely sort of sequence of typical sort of motor development, of then learning to sort of pivot when they're on their tummy and move around in circles, starting to push off to roll, pushing up on their hands and knees, or commando crawl. So it's a great foundation for their motor development. But like I said, it doesn't have to start with putting newborn baby on their tummy on the floor, because obviously newborn babies in the fourth trimester, they want to be held, they want skin to skin, they want connection with you, you want connection with them. So a really lovely way to start is with baby on your chest, and then when you're comfortable and they're comfortable, you can recline back and baby can lift their head up against gravity. You can also use the sling, like I said, holding them on your shoulder, lying on their side. And then when baby's a little bit stronger, you could maybe start, when you both feel comfortable, putting them on a wedge on the floor. So they're propping up on their elbows, starting to lift their head a little bit more against gravity. Then eventually sort of having arms over like a rolled up cushion or towel. And then baby sort of pushing up directly on the floor when they're a bit bigger, sort of 4 months onwards, and starting to develop some sort of strength and control in their upper back. But I think it's because that's why I say it's always a marathon and not a sprint, because the next sort of big developmental milestone is like rolling, which might not be until sort of 5, 6 months. So it's quite a long time of feeling like you're doing a lot of tummy time, especially if baby has reflux. It can be really challenging, but that sort of recommended 30 minutes can definitely be broken up throughout the day. It can be in this different sort of variety of positions, which is really lovely for baby to experience. And hopefully that sort of provides a little bit of reassurance that there's different ways you can do it. It doesn't have to start with on the floor from sort of day one. And yeah, it'd just be really lovely, I think, if parents sort of if the pressure was taken off parents a bit with tummy time, and it can be seen more as time in the wake window when baby's awake. Because I remember when my twins were little, those wake windows when they're tiny just fly by because you're so busy with feeding and all everything else that has to be done. You're left with a tiny amount of time where you can actually feel like you can just interact with baby when they're awake. So it can be a lovely bonding time, lots of lovely positions that you can be in to sort of be face to face with baby and interacting.
And actually, I think, some of these positions you mentioned, like baby over your shoulder or reclined after feeding and things, actually, parents are probably doing little bits of tummy time without actually noticing. But when we
Yeah,
think of tummy time, we think that, that like final part of it that you mentioned, like on the floor. And
yeah,
one of the things that drives me mad, Kira, is the marketing on tummy time like devices and like special cushions. And like you just said, like a rolled up towel, a pillow. You don't have to be purchasing extra items for tummy time. Like a
no.
rolled up blanket and your face is golden. Like that's literally all you need.
Yeah, and if you have if you still have your pregnancy pillow, or which I think most people end up
Yeah.
carrying on them.
Everyone ends up with a pregnancy pillow. Yeah, they're
So,
ideal.
they're ideal, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And you can make wedges out of ways of folding up towels and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't need to be like this overcomplicated thing, does it? Like it's sometimes I think with parenting and motherhood, especially in the early days, stripping things back is so much more effective, isn't it, than overcomplicating it,
Yeah.
for sure. Now, let's talk about delayed milestones, because ultimately that is what we're all worried about. That is what we're all trying to avoid, aren't we? So for mums listening, Kira, who maybe are concerned about delayed milestones, when should they seek advice from a professional? And what does that look like? Like, where do they go? What happens? What might they expect?
Yeah. So in terms of delaying sort of gross motor milestones, so those bigger sort of physical milestones, sort of the general healthcare advice is to see your GP or local peds physio if they're sort of not meeting milestones at set sort of age range, and that's just there just to be a guide, just to be safe, just so parents have a kind of point that when they get to that actually check in now, just so we can make sure. Um, it's just so we can provide advice and help and also make sure that there's not anything else going on that could be affecting their development. So the general sort of advice for that would be if they haven't got head control at 3 months. So if you find that at 3 months their head's still lagging, you're still having to support their head when you're holding them, when you are doing your different positions off their back, starting tummy time, that they're not quite able to lift their head up yet, that would be a point to sort of check in. If they're not showing signs of rolling, generally at 7 months. Um, if they're not sitting around 9 months. And then for floor mobility, so that could be, like we said, that doesn't have to be crawling, but it can be crawling, but it could be commando crawling or bottom shuffling even. If they're not doing those at 11 months, we'd say to check in because we want them to be doing those at 12 months. And also, if they're not pulling to stand and taking weight through their legs at 12 months, that would be a time to check in. And then for walking, it would be 18 months. So they're not walking at 18 months. But I always say there's no harm checking in with your health visitor before then, if you're still in contact with your health visitor. Um, and I work in the NHS and in private practice. And in the NHS, where I work, we have a great relationship with the health visitors in our community, and they can always pick up the phone and they can ask us on behalf of the parent, and we can give advice and things like that over the phone and reassurance of whether a referral is needed or not. So, and they can help with access to different sort of groups in the community, which can really help with development. Um, yeah, so there's no harm sort of checking in, but there are other what we call sort of red flags that we'd say, other times when we'd sort of say to sort of check in. So if not just if they're not reaching a movement at a certain point, but if the way that they're doing that movement doesn't fit sort of a typical movement pattern. So if you're finding that there's some asymmetry, so they're moving one side of the body slightly different to the other, or one limb slightly different to the other. Um, with babies, they can sort of develop some tightness in some of their joints, and that can develop in utero or during birth or due to sort of positioning. So if you're noticing that they've got a preference of turning their head to one side, or they're not fully turning their head to both sides, they could have a bit of tightness in their neck. So we definitely want you to check in. and check in as soon as you notice these things. So by going to your GP or letting your health visitor know as well, or seeing a local paediatric physio if you have access, direct access to one. The other thing, like we touched on, is sort of flat spots on the back of baby's head. So if baby seems to be developing a plagioccephaly, we'd say to check in. If there's any stiffness in any joint, so the most typical ones we see are sort of stiffness in the feet. So that can be in any kind of position, but most typically it's if the foot is sort of stuck pointing down and in. We'd say to check in. And then if there's any sort of clicking or signs of stiffness or discomfort when you're changing baby, so that can be in the legs or around the hips or in the feet, anything like that, check in. Obviously, if baby's in any sign of pain or swelling in their joints. And then another one is that another sort of red flag is if they sort of meet their motor milestones, but then they have a regression in their milestones. So say they learn and develop a skill such as sitting or crawling, but then they stop doing it. Sometimes that can happen very briefly when a baby's a bit poorly, so if they picked up a virus or bug or something. But if it's going on for a few days, then check in. And if baby ever seems like, so a baby who is walking and is mobile, if they start to look like they're limping, then we definitely want you to check in and see a health professional straight away. So checking in with your GP. But you know baby best. So if you feel like something's changed or something doesn't feel quite right, then check in.
That's so, so helpful. Really, really good advice there. Thank you. And I think, it's that thing of it's okay to just need reassurance as well, isn't it? Like it's okay if you see someone and they're like, no, it's all good. Like that's not wasting people's time. Your baby's precious and naturally you want to advocate for them. So don't ever feel worried about sort of picking up the phone and then being told actually everything's completely fine. If that's
Yeah.
all it takes and everyone sleeps easy, then happy days, right? It's a nice quick fix for everybody. Um, Aside from tummy time, Ciara, can you share some kind of simple, everyday kind of activities or exercises that parents can do at home to support their child to develop some of these key motor skills that we've talked about?
Yeah, so I really feel like our main role as parents in terms of development, especially for motor, so physical development, is to provide a safe environment for baby that's suitable for their sort of developmental stage. So you don't, I mean, I know I've gone through and spoken quite a bit about age ranges and variants and just as a guide, but generally that's just a guide to sort of know when to flag things up and help reassure you. But generally, if you can just follow through that sort of sequence of development, so once baby's done like you feel like baby's pushing up well in tummy time, got good head control, then the next thing would be moving on to rolling and crawling. So setting up an environment that's nice and safe, lots of layering. So floor play is so important for baby's development. So, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy, anything really expensive, just like a good thick play mat that baby can be safe on. You can have toys like what we said about sort of seeing what toys your baby's interested in, whether it's the flashy light toys, the loud sounding toys, the really contrasting color toys, and layering them. So have some on the floor, have some up on a cushion, some on the sofa. So baby is sort of exploring and then they've got that opportunity then. And if you can do that a few minutes, ideally every wake window, but generally if you're managing to do it a few minutes in wake windows, that's brilliant, and you're really setting baby up to have great opportunity to problem solve and develop these sort of motor skills. um, so I think that would be the main thing. And I get it as parents, like sometimes we just have to get stuff done. So we need to use a container like a bouncer or something like that. And that's fine because you're keeping baby safe while you have to get something done or you need to sit and have a cup of tea or, it's keeping you going, fueling you through the day. But if you can sort of try and limit it to sort of like less than like a 30-minute chunk of time that they're in a container and then let baby be in a few different positions, whether that's in a sling or you holding them or baby playing on the floor. I think that is the best sort of setup you can give your baby for them to explore and then play. And then on like we touched earlier, like on my Instagram account, I have got quite a few like videos and reels that I sort of went through activities with my twins. And then you can sort of have a look at them if you'd like for sort of more specific things for reaching. But hopefully we've touched on quite a few different activities like throughout this chat.
Yeah, definitely check that out. And actually, your Instagram handle's linked in the episode description, but the child physio is where you'll find Ciara. Because sometimes it's really nice just to copy what someone's doing that you know is an expert, like sometimes when you are sleep deprived and you're lacking a bit of energy and motivation, because let's be honest, as much as we all want the best for our children, we're human beings, not robots. And like you say, sometimes you do just need that like 5 minutes of sitting down, having a cup of tea with your hands free, and that's absolutely fine. So sometimes if you've got like a reliable source and you can be like, right, tomorrow we're going to do that for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just actually follow someone else's lead. And the difficult thing with the internet that I talk about all the time, Ciara, is that everyone's an expert online. So it can make it a really conflicting, confusing, and often actually quite dangerous place for mums to navigate. So it's really lovely that we've got people like you that actually parents can follow and look at and be like, right, if I follow this activity, I know it's safe and I know it's supportive for my child. So definitely having a little look at that and saving some bits so that when you've got those moments of low inspiration, you can just follow Ciara's lead and know that you're doing great things for your baby. So thank you, because I absolutely know that putting content out on social media is challenging, especially juggling twins, Ciara. So you are incredible, and we are all very, very grateful for that. Um, Everyone that comes on the podcast, I ask for 3 top tips, and you've given us loads already. So it may just be your little kind of key summaries, and that's perfect. But could you share with us your 3 top tips for parents listening that are sort of worrying about or trying to educate themselves on milestones?
Yes. So the first would be setting up that sort of safe sort of play environment. So floor play using lots of different layers, and letting baby sort of explore. So try putting baby lying down. So baby has to sort of problem solve and work out pushing up to sitting up, or you can help baby. If you want baby to be sat on the play mat, you can lie them on their side and you can guide them up to sitting. But giving them that sort of safe environment, lots of layered levels of toys to play, ideally for sort of a few minute chunks like here and there throughout the day. Then top tip would be practice. So lots and lots of practice. So once you've sort of found an activity that baby is um, starting to develop, so sort of they're working on their rolling, so giving them lots of opportunity in the day to practice rolling. Like we've all been there, where you're woken in the night and you look at the monitor and you can see baby practicing their rolling, or baby up on their hands and knees and practicing their rocking because they're raring to go to get falling. So giving baby lots and lots of practice. So they've got the most brain cells, I think, at any point in their life up to sort of the age of 3. So the more they practice these skills, and it's through that repetition that they really develop the connections between these brain cells and really hone in and learn these sort of gross motor skills. So lots of practice. So I'd say the environment, practice. And then I suppose if you could just remember, be kind to yourself, that there is this huge variance in what is typical sort of development. And if you feel that your baby's not within that, or they're showing signs of anything that in your gut just doesn't seem quite right, then check in, because there are health professionals out there that specialise in sort of baby physical development. I think it's not really widespread knowledge on it too much yet, I don't think, in terms of getting the information out to parents. But I think it tends to be, at the moment, if parents are worried about something, that's when they'll look into it, and then that's when they'll kind of find us. But yeah, there's information out there, and if you are concerned, then do let your GP know and do get in touch.
Oh, you're an absolute star. Thank you so much, Ciara. I'm really grateful for you sharing that information because, yeah, like you say, parents deserve to know about it before they're then in a place of kind of worry because we can probably prevent a lot of that with correct information education. So thank you for your time. And if you are an expectant or a new parent listening, then do head over to the Child Physio and check out all of Ciara's brilliant, brilliant work.